Hello my friends, this is Sylvie Curry again, and once again I'm in my kitchen. Today I'm going to make a tomato jam. Yeah, it's that time of year when a lot of you are harvesting tomatoes from your gardens and you have an abundant supply and you're wondering, what can I do with it? You've got friends you've given them to, you've done this with it and done that with it, and you say, what else? Tomato jam. It's a very simple recipe, very easy to do. The only thing that is time consuming is just letting it reduce and bringing it to a jam consistency. Let's do this. Tomato jam. Today I'm going to be making a tomato jam. This is a recipe based upon one I found on the internet by Mark Bittman. It's in a number of internet sources and sites, and I'll put the links in the display or description box. The ingredients include 2 cups of sugar. I have 3 pounds of ripe tomatoes, 2 tablespoons of freshly minced ginger, 2 teaspoons of salt, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground cloves, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of cumin, and 4 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lime juice. To prepare the tomatoes, I'm going to first core them, and then we're going to do a rough chop. It's suggested in the recipe that plum tomatoes or aroma type tomato be used, but I got these vine ripened, and I thought I'd give them a go. Coring wise, I'm just taking out this section and going through there. I've got my tomatoes coarsely chopped, and we're leaving on the skins. We're also leaving in the seeds. We're not going to pull any of that out. So they're going into a heavy pan or pot, and we're going to combine all the other ingredients. We've got the sugar, we've got cinnamon, cumin, our red pepper flakes, our ground cloves, salt, lime juice, and our minced ginger. We're just going to combine all of this, put it on the stove, medium temperatures. The juices are going to ooze out. It's going to come to a boil. We're going to reduce the flame, or temperature on the stove, and just watch it and stir. See, I've already got a lot of liquid coming out from those tomatoes. Got a medium heat going, and we're going to bring this up to a boil. It's going to take approximately an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half for this to jam. That means a lot of reducing going on of all this liquid that's in here. And by the time it breaks down, all the skins and everything else will have broken down, and we'll have a nice jam consistency. You won't even know that the skins are in here. Got a boil now, and I'm going to lower the temp to a simmer. Oh, those flavors in there are just amazing. The cloves, the ginger, the cinnamon. Wow. I wish you could smell this. Tomatoes are starting to break down, so now it's just a matter of continuing it on a simmer and coming in and giving it a stir every once in a while until we have that jam consistency. This is 45 minutes into the simmer. We're starting to see more of the tomatoes breaking down. This is at 1 hour. Starting to get some thickening. Our tomato jam is now at 1.5 hours of simmer. Still pretty liquid, but thickening up nicely. I doubled this recipe. The original recipe only called for 1.5 pounds of tomatoes. I used 3 pounds. In addition, I doubled all the spices and other ingredients that went into it. So I started off with a whole lot more liquid than the original recipe would have had, suggesting that 1 hour and 15 minutes to 1.5 hours was enough. We're going to let this continue to go until we get to that jam-like consistency, because you can see here we're pretty liquid. We are now at the 2 hour mark. Much more thickening. Still a little ways to go. We're going to continue this labor of love here with this tomato jam. Okay. This tomato jam's been bubbling away. It's been a little over 2 hours and going on the 2:15 mark. And I think we've got a nice consistency here. Keep in mind also that when it cools, it will thicken a little bit more. What do we use tomato jam for? Tomato jam, though it is sweet, can be used in a variety of ways. It can go with meats as like a sauce. I've had it with tri-tip. I've had it with lamb. It's very, very good. It's a nice taste to it. You can also do things like make hors d'oeuvres with it. Something that comes to mind would be something like a cream cheese laid out in a platter with tomato jam on top, eaten with crackers. You go with it, whatever you feel. Now keep in mind, this is a labor of love because a lot of attention has to be given during this simmering process because you don't want to burn it. You don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pan. Yet and still you want that nice consistency to it. I'm going to prepare some mason jars. And I'm going to store it in those. And I'll come back and we'll finish this process. I have my tomato jam and I'm going to place it in these mason jars. And I'll fill nearly to the top, not all the way to the top. I may get 3 jars out of this. These are half pints. If we just went to this step of filling the jars and topping them off and letting them cool, we could keep them in the refrigerator for, I'd say probably up to about a week to 2 weeks. I've seen recipes where they say 1 week, and I've seen other recipes where it says up to 2 weeks. Put our caps on. And keep in mind, I could hold these jars. They're very, very hot. But I've got on gloves with a cotton liner in it, so it makes it where I can tolerate a little bit more heat. Tomato jam. Then I'm going to turn these upside down. And from this step, upside down, you let them stay that way until they've cooled. Or the alternative is that I could can these, and I could can them, have a water bath. I have a water bath that is going here, and I can add these jars to my water bath, and I can water process them for about 35 to 40 minutes. And that way they don't need to be refrigerated. They're basically canned. Keep in mind that when I prepared this recipe that I did add 4 tablespoons of lemon juice to them, which is acidic, and that's necessary if I'm going to can it. So let's continue this in my water bath. And I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. And my timing of my 35 minutes begins when this water comes to a boil again. I'll put the lid on it, and that'll give it an opportunity to come to a boil quicker. Tomato jam is out of the water bath. You hear that? That sound was the sound of the suction in the mason jars. I'll let those sit there and cool. And now we have canned tomato jam. Just thought of another use for canned tomato jam, or tomato jam in general. There's a big craze going on these days with, they call them Korean hot dogs, or corn dogs. In my day, they were called hot dog on a stick. Same thing, the only difference is the coatings that are put on them. How about if we have a corn dog with some tomato jam on it, instead of regular old ketchup or mustard? Doesn't that sound yummy? I'm going to have to think about that today.